Well, Code Keepers, you're in for another great lesson from our resident think tank himself, Minister Zumbi Shawala, with the cash machine in the background. So, Code Keepers, this one is live and uncensored, the Black Liberation Legacy of Brother Steve Coakley. And I tell you, Code Keepers, this one is interesting. Steve Coakley has been one of those personalities in the Black conscious space that intrigued me, demeaned me, and also made me consider a lot of different things. So, Code Keepers, I'm a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, Root to the Bros. I was at a workshop and he said, all the divine nine-fold stand up. So I didn't stand up. I'm not a fool, right? Not a fool. He said, okay, all the members of the fraternity, Black fraternities and sororities, stood up, because now he's not calling me a fool. Then he called us oath keepers. And I was like, oath keepers? But his information was so beautiful. I stuck around and I read some of his information. I listened to some of his cassette tapes back then, the cassette tapes. Saw some videos. Saw him twice. I saw him live twice after he called me an oath keeper. Steve Coakley, man, love him. Gotta love him. But I'm here to learn from you. So with precise thinking, that's the show when Minister Zumbi Shawala shows up in all his glory, and he just teaches us about things. So let's do this. Let's start thinking.
Like I said, like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, do for self or suffer the consequences. How the hell do you make the CIA boy the hero when we know what the history has been between the CIA and Africa? Only when the father makes his transition to the ancestral realm of the Agun does the son truly become a man.
All right, Code Keepers, I get a chance to shut up and listen. Brother Zumbi Shawala, man, do what you do, bro. Do what you do.
This is kind of a unique opportunity to speak about a man who I call my GMT, Grandmaster Teacher, Brother Steve Coakley. May the universe be pleased with him. In fact, what I'll do for those of you who may not have my book, The Gospel of Afronomics Theology, I actually dedicated it to his legacy. And I'll go ahead and read my dedication to him. I dedicate this book to my ancestral teacher, Brother Steve Coakley. I was introduced to your work in 1989 through an interview with Bob Law on WBLS radio in New York City. You were having a dialogue with Jonathan Kaufman over Black-Jewish relations. Since that interview, I became a follower of your work. In 1994, I met you live for the first time at Austin Peay State University in Clarksville, Tennessee. You were discussing your thoughts on the Quabilla Shabazz situation. The dialogue was very insightful. That encounter led me to begin doing personal research of the world as it is and how to improve it. In 2002, our paths crossed again at SUNY Albany. That was the time I became a student of yours. There were things you taught us that continue to have a far-reaching impact on my life. The single greatest jewel you gave us was when you came to SUNY Albany with Dr. Leonard Jeffries in November 2002. We were at the Best Western Hotel, and you taught us about having character, honor, and integrity when choosing to be a servant of African people. You reminded us to never come before the people dirty. That resonated with me then and now. I pay that lesson forward to a new generation of young African men. I also took the lessons of creating a Freedom Fighters University, along with the need for Black futurists. As I continue to carry that mission through Liberty Hall Academy, I ask that your spirit continue to guide and assist me and others who sat at your feet and now move forward. I thank you for your time, insight, humor, lessons, and transparency with your life. May I continue to bring the message live and uncensored. Check. So that was my dedication to him. Where do I begin? I would have to begin really with the man himself. I think a lot of times we have a tendency to be awe-inspired when people get in front of a microphone, a camera, a podium, and to really talk that talk, if you will. But what Brother Coakley did for me and my contemporaries was we got to see the man. And what I mean by that is we got to see the Father, we got to see the Son, we've got to see one who was transparent with his vulnerabilities and having a greater appreciation for the price one pays to be a servant of African people in this Black liberation movement. I think if you really want to know about Brother Coakley, I would like to describe him as a combination of Richard Pryor and Malcolm X, where he made it plain, but he made it humorous at the same time. You have any questions, Seiko, at this point?
To be honest with you, brother, at this point, I'm sit back learning about your admiration about Brother Steve Coakley. Like I said, he was just another lecturer to me. You know, Steve Coakley was just one of, hey, you got to hear Steve Coakley. He's funny. Okay. Hey, you got to hear Steve Coakley. He's thought-provoking. Cool. That's what Steve Coakley was. And then I was able to kind of look at some of the things he talked about. And some I thought were a little far-fetched. Some I thought were, what's the word that you call conspiracy theorists? And then some of them I was like, ooh, this is eye-opening. So my introduction to him was very different than your introduction to Steve Coakley. So I'm just going to sit back and learn from you, bro. I'm going to sit back and learn from you.
Well, I mean, the thing with the whole thing about the, for lack of a better term, Divine Nine, he did say that there were those who were in these Greek-lettered organizations who were true servants of African people. I think for me, from my interpretation, he says that in critical moments, there should be no barriers that separate our people. Okay. He talked about that there will come a period, what he calls a trial of the oath takers, where he sees, well, basically what he's getting at, he wasn't just talking about the Divine Nine. He says that there should be nothing higher than the call of RBG, red, black, and green. He says that we should all be unified and nothing should separate us. And that was his concern about those who take oaths, whether it's the Greek-lettered organizations, whether it's Masonic organizations, whether it's those who may have taken an oath to go into the U.S. military. So what he's saying is that there should be nothing to separate us in a critical moment. Because in a critical moment, we will find out where your true loyalties and your true priorities lie.
I say that. And that was one of the things I loved about him when I got a chance to listen. Because he explained things in a way that even though I may have initially been like, hey, hold up, bro. 5 minutes later, I'm like, keep talking.
Okay.
Keep talking. Keep it coming. And I did get that. So I lovingly talk about the time when he called me an oath keeper. But he did say that, like you stated, that nothing should divide us. And we've let religion divide us. We've let organizations divide us. We've let location divide us. We've let white supremacy divide us. So we can't allow things to continue dividing us. And that's the thing. I think I have to say that's one of the things that I walked away with that is really shaped who I am, because I get a lot of flack. They're like, pick a side, bro. I'm like, I pick us. I don't pick a side. Are you Moorish? Are you black? Pick a side. I'm us. Copper skinned. Are you African American? I pick us. Are you Christian or are you conscious? I pick us. You know what I'm saying? I pick us. And that's something that I learned from Brother Steve Copley. That's one thing I've always valued about his teachings. Even though he would get on that tail. Pause. He would get on that tail. No diddy, as they say now. No diddy. He would get on that tail, no diddy. No disrespect to anybody who likes the tail. All right, I'll leave it at that. He would get on that tail, but he also showed love, and he was always about bringing us together. So, like I said, bro, I'm sitting back. I need to learn from you tonight.
And the one thing that I've never saw him as was a quote unquote conspiracy theorist, in part because, and this is the one thing that I've always gained from Brother Copley, and he would say this in jest, but I think he understood that it was true. He says, when you come and talk to the people, sometimes you got to have good white sources or else you won't be considered credible. Okay. So one of the things that I learned from him was to always have your evidence to prove your point. Okay. That's really one of the strengths of Brother Copley. Regardless of what anybody will try to say to discredit him, he will never come before you without evidence. In fact, I remember the great debate that he had with Larry Elder in 1998 in LA. And that's
Elder on YouTube, right?
Yeah, you can find it on YouTube. The topic or the topic is Hollywood racist? And the way it was set up was humorous. Here it is, you have Larry Elder, who's this Negro conservative. His table was draped with a red, white, and blue flag, and he comes in with just two folders. Copley comes in with basically a suitcase full of information. His table was draped in red, black, and green. Now, I think what Larry Elder underestimated was the fact that the audience was pro-Copley, because Copley had basically established himself in the LA area amongst the people. And so the people knew of Copley. They didn't know of Larry Elder, nor did they trust Larry Elder. And if you watch that debate, you'll see how Copley presented the evidence to prove the point of how racist Hollywood was. And I think it showed the ineptitude of Larry Elder, or the disingenuousness of Larry Elder. Okay. And that's the debate itself. And like I said, if you go watch that debate, I think Elder and also Irv Rubin, who happened to be in that audience, underestimated how pro-Copley that audience was going to be.
Oh, okay.
So that's one of the strengths that I've gained from Brother Copley, is to always make sure that you have evidence in front of you when you come before the people. And that's one of the things that I talked about when he says, when you choose to serve African people, don't come before the people dirty. Not only with you bringing evidence, but also with your character, your honor, your integrity, and your principles. And that was one thing that Copley was really adamant about with the next generation of warrior scholar activists is you must operate with character, with honor, integrity, and principle. He said something real interesting. He says, how can I trust a man who will violate the oath that he took to honor his wife and then expect me to be side by side with him when we're in battle? I can't trust you, because if you can violate the oath that you took to your wife, I'm fair game. And so those are some of the things that I think people miss about Coakley, or never really got to understand about Brother Coakley, is the importance of having good moral, just good morals, and just being a good human being, and particularly being a good African to the African world community.
Interesting.
Okay.
So, of course, we're not going to show or listen to the debate because that's their content, and we respect that. We just want to kind of highlight that the content exists so people can check out the conversation. So, what happened in this debate with Larry Elder?
I think Larry Elder, I don't know if he underestimated Coakley or if he underestimated Coakley's track record. Because like I said, he only came with 2 folders, and the argument that he presented really held no weight. In fact, when you do watch that debate, there's an actress who's in the audience who bears witness to what Coakley was saying. Her name is Anne-Marie Johnson. I don't know if you're familiar with her.
You talking about light-skinned Anne-Marie or dark-skinned Anne-Marie?
Yeah, light-skinned Anne-Marie Johnson. Okay, she's in the audience.
I had such a crush on her.
And like I said, I think Larry Elder underestimated Coakley's research ability, as well as underestimated how strong he was in the Black community in LA. And I think Larry Elder really got exposed in that, because the thing that I've learned about when you look at Black conservatives, I always ask the question, and these are the things that Coakley always told us to do: name the names and follow the money. And the one thing that I've learned about all these Black conservative pundits that show up, they all have a sugar daddy. And what I mean by a sugar daddy is their sugar daddy is the think tank that continues to fund them. And it's mostly a right-wing think tank, whether it's the American Enterprise Institute or any other right-wing conservative think tank you can think of, that they are always funding these Negro conservatives.
Okay. All right. If I can put a pin in that, because I just want to take a moment and appreciate the God-given beauty of Anne-Marie Johnson. This picture right here, same picture. Oh my God. Man, listen, when I was young, you couldn't tell me she wasn't the hottest singer. And she she's, I don't know. All right, I just had to take a moment. But so Anne-Marie Johnson was in the audience. I kind of got stuck there. Let's continue.
Okay.
I'm a mess.
But to go back to probably one of the biggest things of the legacy of Brother Coakley is always doing things with what I call ethical excellence, or if you read Che Guevara's Guerrilla Warfare, moral superiority. When you serve the people, okay, you should always operate at your highest moral character in your dealings with the people. The one thing that Brother Coakley always said was, he says, look, I am Brother Steve Coakley, servant of African people. He never said he was a leader. He says, I am a servant of African people. And I think throughout his 59 years on this planet, he has served African people to the best of his ability. Not only that, and I thought about it earlier today, if you look at the type of research that Brother Coakley did pre-internet. Okay, he didn't have the technological leverage and advances that we have now. And for him to be able to do the type of research that he was able to do, in some cases with no money, it makes me look at us and saying, are we dropping the ball?
Well, so let's take a quick commercial break, and then we'll get into the legacy, well, the things that Brother Coakley left behind that we're still benefiting from today. So, look, man, we do this all the time. Code Keepers, you know where I'm going with this, right? One of my favorite books. The Gospel of Afronomics Theology by Minister Zumbi Shawala. Let us know about your book, bro.
Well, I've already read the dedication to Brother Coakley from this book, and it's really a combination of 22 years of personal experience and research in areas of business, economics, entrepreneurship, and finance, but I do it from an African-centered perspective. And it's really a blueprint of what I call a Black economic blueprint for the 21st century and beyond. There's books out there that deal with business and economics and finance, but there's very few that look at it from an African-centered perspective. So I took that charge myself. In fact, part of the reason why I wrote this book is because, and I'll go ahead and get into this. The last time that I saw Brother Coakley in person, it was at the National Black Theater in Harlem. It was February 2003. And he was in a situation where he was about to relocate from DC to the West Coast to be closer to Dr. Onion Palmer, founder of the Marcus Garvey School. And he was selling tapes, and I don't know how much money I had. And it looked like that he was really in a kind of a financial bind. I said, Brother Coakley, I'm gonna tell you this. Don't worry about me. Take what you need. I've already picked out the tapes and everything else that I want. But I said, here's what I have. I'm going to turn my back. Take what you need to get you to where you need to go. I put the money down and I turned my back. I said, trust me. I turned my back. And I don't remember how much he took, but I just wanted him to make sure that he had enough to get where he needed to go. And he said he really appreciated that. When we got on the train out of Penn Station and we're headed back up to Albany, I was just so livid. I said, here's somebody who has dedicated his life to the liberation of his people, and he's got to scramble like this. And we've got Judases among us who are balling for the devil. Okay. And we can't even keep our heroes, who we say are heroes. We can't even take care of them. And I felt bad myself because I wasn't in a financial position to help him in a manner that he needed to be helped. And I said, as long as I have breath in my body, I will never let another generation of warrior scholar activists go hungry, naked, and homeless. Okay, because there's too many of us that have put our lives on the line and have dedicated our lives to something greater than ourselves, and we get no reward from it. In fact, it's our own people who commit the treason against us.
You know, one of the things that I guess over time, I've come to the conclusion that some of us need to be on the front lines, teaching, preaching, outreaching, you know, that type of work, like Brother Coakley. There needs to be another group that we not cater to, but we mold. that we sculpt, that we train, that's going to do the thinking about how we can create structures to support those who are teaching, preaching, and outreaching. So there needs to be a group, a cadre of us who our job is to think, how can we make sure that Dr. Ben didn't die penniless? How can we be sure that Steve Coakley didn't die penniless? How can we be sure that Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, that Madam C.J. Walker, that, any of the people that, any of the people that we really hold as valuable, how can we ensure that they have a life insurance policy that includes provisions that will start paying them at 70? There are structures, there are financial structures that exist. We need to develop a cadre. And one of the things I think that happens is we get so wrapped up in the awakening, the conscious shifting, the thought-provoking information, and we might pay the person who's giving us the content, but we're not developing the foundation that will provide for them when they get old and will provide for us when we get old. And so when I look at other organizations and groups, with my fraternity, we had a meeting, we call it the conclave. It's actually biannual meeting where we all come together and we do the business of the organization. And our bossilus, our grand bossilus, our president, got on stage and said, we're a multi-million-dollar organization. We need to be a multi-billion-dollar organization. One of the ways we can do that is if I make sure that all financial members have a life insurance policy. That life insurance policy will be paid by the organization. And when that member transitions, half of the money from that policy will go to the fraternity. Half of the money goes to their beneficiaries. So we're taking care of us. We're taking care of those who are progeny, those who are coming after us, and we're taking care of the organization. And when he said that, I was like, oh snap, I've heard of other organizations doing this. I know that the Rockefellers have something like this. I have one of my mentors who teaches me about how they created a family financial stability plan, and that was one of the platforms of the plan. One of the people in the documentary that I have called Generational Flip, you can find that at generationalflip.com, generationalflip.com. The good brother A. Donahue Baker shares how he set his family up in such a way that all the young people, so that we have the great grandmothers and grandfathers, then we have the parents, and then we have the children, right? So the parents and the children, this level, they all put money into a pot that pays for life insurance policies for the elders. And so when the elders pass, then that money pays for all of the adults. It gives them policies and children. The children become the beneficiaries. So as these adults transition, now everybody benefits. And that's one way that they're able to preserve the wealth that their family is creating, is making sure that when somebody passes on, the family actually becomes enriched while they're mourning the loss of their beloved person. So there's some strategies and structures that we need to put together if we truly love our Steve Coakleys, if we truly love our Dr. Benz, if we truly love our Dr. David Imhoteps, if we truly love our Dr. You're going to joke me on this one, our Dr. Kimya Nuru Dennis's. If we truly love the people that give us the content, we need to put together the structures that will ensure that when they're older, they can still live a great life, and that they will leave something for their children's children's children. So I think it's up to us, bro.
Yeah, one of the things, and this goes back to when he came to Albany, he talked to us about having to step away from the lecture circuit because of his mother, who had developed dementia, Alzheimer's, and to watch the pain on his face discussing about the woman who gave birth to him and watching her go through that process and not being able to do anything to stop it or reverse it. He said it was one of the most humbling experiences he ever witnessed. And then he had a similar situation with Dr. Onion Palmer, who had succumbed to dementia, Alzheimer's, after everything that he did to create the Marcus Garvey School. In fact, it was Brother Coakley who introduced us to what was going on in South Central LA with the Marcus Garvey School. He told us about how that school was able to teach in 10 years what it takes mainstream education 20 years. Okay. He talked about how Michael Milken tried to steal the Marcus Garvey School from Dr. Palmer, and how it took the people to save the Marcus Garvey School and to get rid of those Judases who were on the board, who were trying to participate in the coup d'etat to get Dr. Palmer out of there.
Whoa.
Okay.
You know, that's, well, first of all, I want to say this real quick. The Bronx is in the house. Salute to Aura Martinez. Yo, Aura Martinez. She's an empowerment coach out in the BX. She was on one of the earlier episodes of Get on Code, and looks like she's tapping in on Instagram. So the Bronx is in the house. What's up, Aura? Beautiful sister too, man. She's banging. She's banging. And she's intelligent. You know, I'm not just saying that she's, you know, physically attractive. She's the total package. So, but I want to say that what you're talking about are the things that we have to do sometimes. We have to step away. But if we would have done proper planning, we wouldn't have to step away as much.
You know, and I think from his legacy, is part of the reason that I do what I do in areas of business and economics. One of the things that he talked about was his vision of creating what he called a Freedom Fighters University, but he just didn't have the necessary capital to make that happen. And there's a lecture he did the week after 9/11 at the UAM in Brooklyn. It's called The Beast, the Bomb, and the Change. And he talked about how through his sojourn, he was able to do what he was able to do with limited resources. And then he says, I come before you and ask if you are willing to commit to make a monthly, I call it a monthly investment. Some may call it a donation, but a monthly investment to where, imagine if, whether it was Brother Coakley, whether it was Dr. Ben or whomever, had $10,000 guaranteed every month, to where if they wanted to go lecture, they can go lecture where they need to go instead of where they got to go in order to get paid, in order to pay bills.
And that's called an endowment.
Okay. That's
called an endowment. So with an endowment, let's say we take $10,000, we put it into a policy that gives us a guaranteed amount for a certain amount of time, right? And so if you put in 10, I put in 10, my mama puts in 10, my daddy puts in 10, my children put in 10, you know, wifey puts in 10. You know, if we all put in this money and it grows at 8%, then we can easily take 2% of that per year and use it for something, because we know that it's going to replenish, right? And so let's say we have $1 million. Well, whatever 2% of $1 million is what we have a chance to spend this year and next year and the year after in perpetuity, right? So I worked with an organization called, well, I'm not going to name the organization, but this organization was a foundation that received donations from very, very wealthy people. And with the endowment that this organization had, they were able to employ a staff of around 50 people, a pretty decent wage, every year in perpetuity, to make sure that high school students who didn't have the wherewithal to get to college, who didn't know how to navigate the process, the applications, the tests they have to take, the essays and somebody. So I became a college and career counselor for 8 years, and I worked in high schools. And the high school, the schools, the city schools did not have to pay for our services because the endowment paid for it. And so in perpetuity, as long as the organization stays around, and if the organization dissipates, then that money goes to another organization that has an endowment that may not do the same thing, but has to use those monies to serve the people. Universities have endowments. Hampton University, my beloved HU, has a great endowment. I remember when I was a student there and I was complaining with the vice president of the school, Dr. Colon, one of my frat brothers, Dr. Colon. I shared with him, hey, look, there's this and there's that, and we don't like this and we don't like that, and we're the students. Without us, you would have nothing. And he said, hold on, young sir. Hold on, young brother. If there was no students, if 0 students darkened the hallways, the hollowed hallways of Hampton University for 10 years, we could still pay every faculty member, every staff member, every cafeteria worker, every janitorial worker. We could pay everybody for 10 years without batting an eye because of our endowment. And that's if 0 students come through our doors for 10 years. And he said, the reason that we focus so much on the future is because you're going to graduate, you're going to go into the work world, and at some point you're going to start giving back to the university. When you do that, the endowment's in place. That's going to make sure that Hampton University is around for another 150 years. That's the way we have to think. So what you just described is we need to create a cultural endowment that will make sure that our cultural creators, our thought leaders, the people putting in the work, the thought leaders and the people on the ground, have an ability to continue doing the work as long as they're physically able to. And then when they're not physically able to, we can employ the next person. So yeah, we need to have an endowment. Hip hop needs to have an endowment. Most of the hospitals in the United States of America, they run off of endowments. So I say that, brother, we need to create an endowment. And it sounds to me like Brother Steve Coakley was talking about that. He just may not have used the language I just used. And I only know about it because I worked for an organization that paid me from an endowment.
Yeah, because one of the things he really talked about was, how do you institutionalize a liberation movement? Okay. And at least for me, what I found is that within Black liberation movements, it's kind of I call it a schizophrenic attitude when it comes to economics. Okay. You tell me you hate capitalism, but yet you're always begging for money. You want to refer to athletes and entertainers as slaves, but you've got no problem digging or wanting to dig into their pockets for that slave money. So, and we sit up here and we talk about how it's nation time, but we've never taken the time to study any form of economic theory. So how can you have any form of civilization with no economy? That's like having a human body with no bloodstream, with no oxygen. Okay, there's an energy that's required to move this thing forward. And one of the things that Brother Coakley talked about was, how do we institutionalize? And that's what he was talking about with his vision of a Freedom Fighters University, where for 60, 90, 180 days, or even up to a year, we can begin to teach African people what is necessary and relevant to their collective survival. That was the vision that he had. And like I said, I think it was just a case of he himself didn't have the necessary capital, or other organizations didn't have the necessary capital to set up the structures necessary in order to train our people into things that are relevant and necessary for us.
I say that. But the good thing is now those platforms exist a little easier for us. So we can do equity crowdfunding. You know, one of the great things from the Obama administration is the ability for us to do equity crowdfunding, where we're able to give people equity in our businesses. So they must be profitable businesses. We have to have profitable businesses, right? But we can give equity. And so if Zumbi, if you donate a certain amount of money, then you get a certain amount of equity in my business. And now we can do some things together when we can pool our resources and your cousin's resources and your family's resources and my family's resources and our friends' resources and your team's resources and the Omega's resources. We pull all of that together. We all have equity, and then we can do some of these big things. So I think that the thing that Brother Coakley was talking about is available for us today. We need to take a hold of it. Now, you talked about your book. I forgot to do my commercial. I forgot to do my commercial, Code Keeper. So let me do my commercial very quickly. All right. So as you know, I have just released my documentary called Generational Flip.
Say that they are living paycheck to paycheck.
You will be wealthier.
My wife and I were flipping our first house.
When you shift the way you see things, then your life is going to shift.
Money is a tool for what you want. Money is not what you want. You don't want money.
So that goes to show that you don't have faith when you do not take your money and put it into those accounts to earn interest. When you're scared thinking that something is going to happen, God says, who are you trusting in? Because I'm the one that has created the money system.
Well, I then got offered $350 million for my company.
It says you owe about $538,000.
That the individual and the individual family unit is responsible for filling their own cups.
I went from being homeless and living on the street to owning properties in Baltimore.
And that's why I decided to start a bank.
This is something that Martin Luther King spoke about.
Stupid mistakes and failures. We continued stumbling forward
because the Black community, for the most part, had to go in rent.
Yeah, Code Keepers. So if you like to build wealth, if you're interested in building wealth, then I have some thought leaders that will really keep you on top of your game. We call it professional development. Look, we have to develop ourselves. Minister Zumbi talked about the 5% rule, the 3% rule, one of the two. Was it 3 or 5?
3.
The 3% rule, where you take 3% of your earnings and you invest in professional development. You invest in things that are going to make you stronger, smarter, and give you a greater ability to pursue your dreams. So there might be classes, that might be programs, it might be mentorship, whatever it is. 3%, you're going to invest that into your life. Well, Generational Flip is an investment. So go to generationalflip.com. That's generationalflip.com and invest in yourself. Now, here's the good thing, Zumbi. I'm about to drop some new news. Here's some new news on the Generational Flip documentary series. It's coming to a streamer near you. So November 17th, 2024. Generational Flip, Amazon Prime. So you can watch it on Amazon Prime. Generational Flip on Amazon Prime, November 17th, 2024. Right? Yeah. I'm so happy to share that with y'all. It's going to be on some other streamers as well. So if you want to watch it early, generationalflip.com. If you want to just check it out when it hits on November 17th, that'll be all 3 episodes of season 1 of Generational Flip. Hey man, let's end with the legacy, the Black liberation legacy of Brother Steve Coakley. What did he leave us that we can infuse into our daily lives?
The one thing that Brother Coakley said was, we have to create a new science called Black futurology. He says, we have Black historians, but where are our Black futurists? So in other words, if anyone understands what being a futurist is, it's one who looks at trends and forecasts what is about to happen, or you create a future that will be conducive for the collective survival of African people. He says that there needs to be a cadre of Black futurists and Black futurologists that can create a future for African people. And I think that's the one thing that we can take from his legacy and move forward with it.
You said that in one of the earlier shows, that where are the Black futurologists? And it blew my consciousness, you know. It's just like, whoa, where are the Black futurologists? On an earlier episode of Get On Code, I met with a futurologist, somebody whose job, her job, and she lives in Sweden. Her job is to study what's going to happen 30 years in the future and figure out what things need to happen now to make sure we're prepared for those forthcoming things. And one of the things she talks heavily about is subsistence, how food is going to change, how food, you know, we have processed food now, we have natural food, but she was saying there's going to be a merging of the processed food and the natural food. And you see that with Beyond Meat. You see that with, Impossible Burgers. You see that with this movement to make everything plant-based. It's still going through a process. So she was saying that within the next 30 years, animals will not be used for subsistence. In the next 30 years. Yeah.
And that's what the CEO of Beyond Beef says, that he says within 20 years, all of these meat industries, we will put them out of business.
Well, she was saying the same thing, and she actually showed the science. Right. And it really interesting thing. So there are people who are futurologists. So the question is, we're out now, where art now? Where are our futurologists?
Right. So where is our Black Alvin and Heidi Toffler? Who's going to write the Black version of Megatrends or Power Shift or the Third Wave? Okay. So that was the thing that Brother Coakley was saying, is that we need to have not just people looking at the past, but we need to have people who are looking at things now in real time and begin to forecast a future for African people. Because he talked about a thing where there was a move to recolonize Africa and to put Africa in such a position that they will be like beggars at the feast. They will be like beggars at the feast, begging for crumbs from the table. Okay.
I think China is working on that right now, bro.
Now, you mentioned China. China has a 100-year program that started in 1949 when Chairman Mao came to power. And one of the things that they talked about was having agricultural development. In other words, having total control over its food supply, which is one of the things Brother Coakley talked about in developing a Freedom Fighters University, is how do we gain control over our food supply? Because, and I think David Banner said it beautifully, if you're going to lead the people, you got to feed the people.
I say that. Well, look, brother, bring us home, man. Bring us home. Let's bring this baby to an end. We've been talking about Live and Uncensored, the Black liberation legacy of Brother Steve Coakley. What are some last words, Zumbi?
I think some of the last words, if you never had the honor to meet Brother Coakley, watch some of his lectures, watch them with an open mind, watch them with an understanding that you may see the physical iceberg, but Brother Coakley tells you to look beneath the water. Okay. And the two things that he always reminded us is name the names and follow the money. Because when you name the names, you eliminate confusion on the battlefield. Okay. He says you never want to say, well, we're fighting against white supremacy. That's not definitive enough. You have to define who the enemies are and be clear about that.
I say that. I say that. So long live the legacy of Brother Steve Coakley. Long live the lessons of Brother Steve Coakley. Long live the love of Brother Steve Coakley. Hey, Code Keepers, we love you. Stay on code. Peace.